You are the contractor, you are the builder, you are the person that, your clients are hiring. They're not hiring, AI. They're not hiring some bot. Like, they want to work with other people who they trust. And they know when things go wrong or when issues come up, like, you will be there for them. And so, like, I want to caution people and not like, trying to go, overboard quite yet. And like, automating everything and, stop answering the phone and stop, writing, communications and stop, like, there's so many things that, like, again, like this easy button could lead to people, going too far with it and forgetting, who they really are and what are their roots and why are people buying from them and trusting them. And I think those relationships are so important.
Welcome to the On-Site Podcast. We chat with contractors, educators, industry professionals about the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So without further ado, let's fucking get into it.
All right, welcome back to the On-Site Podcast. We have an incredibly special guest today. Eric's been on the podcast before. Eric is the CEO of JobTread. JobTread is one of the fastest growing construction management softwares in North America. Several, if not all, of the contractors inside of the Elite Builder Society use this product, and it's grown fast. So the last conversation that you and I had, Eric, we talked a little bit about AI and what we would presume it was going to do. I don't remember the specific date on that, but a lot has happened since then. And the crazy part is the people that are watching this, okay, we're recording this on May 19th, and this is airing on July 6th. So we are talking in the May 19th version of how the world is. And it's moving so quickly that by July 6th, I'm presuming that it will still be growing in a different direction or continuously and moving in a different direction. And so, Eric, I'm excited to have you on today.
Yeah, appreciate you having me on, Brandon.
Tell us what's up. Like, what's going on with JobTread? What are some of the milestones that you've been successful or fortunate enough to hit, and just give us the lowdown on where you're at?
Yeah, well, I'd say probably one of our biggest milestones, this year, it was in February at the International Builder Show when we were exactly 5 years having started selling JobTread. We reached 10,000 active customers, so 10,000 companies using JobTread, and since then we've grown. Now we're over 11,500. I'm sure by the time this airs, we'll be over 12,000 companies using our platform, which is pretty awesome to see the impact and the growth that we've been able to have on so many others out there.
I kind of got a little bit emotional when I saw you were there with those little twist bombs. I wasn't actually there, but hearing the level of excitement, I know how hard it is to build stuff, and I'm obviously not building what you're building by any means. It's different, but I understand the passion behind it. I understand the sleepless nights and the hard days and all the struggles and all the things. And I'm sure other people can relate to building, a business. It's fucking hard. Not one part of it is easy. Yeah. And so when you hit a milestone, I profess this so much. So many people that I know that are close to me, they don't celebrate their victories in a way that it really can show everyone around you how proud you are, and when I could hear you pop that thing off, and I think you even found, your puberty voice came out. Yeah, even got a little bit of a crackle. You were so excited, but it just shows everyone else. It's look at what we're doing. Look at what we've built. And so that was a proud moment for me too, just to be a small part of it, an exciting milestone. I was just talking to another guy. He's going to be joining us in BC, and he just moved from Buildertrend to JobTread, and he said, it's just the technology and the capabilities are endless right now. And obviously, this is May 19th, and who knows where we're at on when this is airing on July 6th. But no, dude, it is going bonkers. And when we talked, I remember you were like, I don't think we're going to get too far into AI. And, you were kind of a little bit hesitant because maybe some of the technology didn't exist. All of the accesses didn't exist. So tell me a little bit about what is new with JobTread right now?
Yeah. Well, first I want to highlight, I think it's so important that when you talk about celebrating your wins, I feel like enough companies don't focus on that. And when you want to build a great culture, it's all about, celebrating. It's about, people want to be on a winning team. And if you don't, have goals, kind of recognize those big wins when you complete a project, you got to find those opportunities to celebrate. That's what makes, getting up every day, coming into work, that's what makes it rewarding, exciting, fun, is when you can celebrate with your team. tonight we're actually taking the entire, I think we got like 67, 68 people now. We're taking the whole team to a steakhouse dinner. We rented out Bob's Chop House here, my favorite steakhouse in Dallas. And, again, we're going to go celebrate. We had a great, Q1. It was a lot of hard work, but, it's about taking that time with your team to go and just recognize everyone for all their hard work and just to say thank you. So I encourage everyone, just anytime you can, get out there and go find those opportunities to celebrate.
Yeah. And this isn't your first kick at the cat, so to speak, building a community, building that culture. You did this with your other company that you exited out of, and that was all community, right? That was all focused on community. And so you're very familiar with the power of empowerment, of success, of like encouragement. That's a major part of, what we do within the Elite Builder Society. We really encourage people to profess their wins, and it's contagious when somebody celebrates that success. And excited that you guys are going to get that steakhouse treatment tonight. That'll be fun for everyone. So tell us a little bit about
so AI.
Yeah, let's get the elephant in the room out of the way. Let's just dig into it.
Yeah, that's definitely been a hot topic for us over here. And I think we talked about it a good while ago. I mean, I've been a huge early adopter, big fan of AI. I would say I believe it's genuinely made me superhuman. The ability to do so much so quickly. Whatever challenge, whatever problem, whatever idea I need to come up with, like being able to leverage Claude. If I first started with ChatGPT, now I'm a huge fan. Big on Claude. It's just such a powerful tool to have in your back pocket whenever you need it. So huge fan. I have had my hesitations because I am a little worried that as it gets into more and more people's hands, and I mean now we've released our AI connector tool where you can connect your chat, your Claude, whatever your own AI, you can connect it to JobTread and you can let it kind of take action and report and create and do all sorts of fun, exciting things. Like I think the concern that I've had this whole time is like, man, like having this easy button, is this going to lead contractors to stop checking their work, to just taking whatever the AI pumps out as fact, as truth, as valid, and I think that there's this like propensity to just kind of want to go as fast as we possibly can, and then we stop doing the things that we know, like we have the experience, like we are the builders. At the end of the day, ChatGPT and Claude, that they all have what's called a hallucination rate. And so like it is so well known that it is actually tracked on how well or how much like each model hallucinates. And again, like these AIs, they can like just convince you without a shadow of a doubt that this is the truth and this is the way and this is the answer. And then push come to shove, it actually isn't. And like, oh yeah, you're right. It really was this other thing. And it's like, huh. So how could you so confidently convince me that it was the right answer? And then like you just like on a dime can flip your tune. Like, I think that's where like I want to remind people and I want to be, again, I'm a big advocate. I really believe in AI, but I also want to remind people that like, look, like you have the experience. You are the contractor. You are the builder. You are the person that, your clients are hiring. They're not hiring, AI. They're not hiring some bot. Like they want to work with other people who they trust. And they know when things go wrong or when issues come up, like you will be there for them. And so like, I want to caution people and not like, trying to go, overboard quite yet. And like, automating everything and, stop answering the phone and stop, writing, communications and stop like, there's so many things that like, again, like this easy button could lead to people, going too far with it and forgetting, who they really are and what are their roots and why are people buying from them and trusting them. And I think those relationships are so important. And so like, that's kind of been my like, my hesitation, but, I will say, man, like, again, like this stuff is developing at light speed. When Anthropic released, this kind of, they open source, what's called an MCP, which is Model Context Protocol, like it enabled any application to be able to interface with Claude, and since they open sourced it, like really, the modern AIs have now adopted and now support these MCP connections. And so as long as your application is, has got, an open API, is got the ability to communicate with, third parties and other applications, like you can connect it to your AI and like, man, it is so powerful what it can do, but again, like this didn't exist too long ago. And so, as soon as we saw it and we saw, the interest and we kind of played with it a little bit, like, man, like we knew we had to get on it. And so I do believe we were the first construction management software to actually release, the ability to connect your own AI to their software.
Which is huge because I know, a couple people that we just connected with not that long ago, they were using BuilderTrend and obviously had all the clunky, problems with BuilderTrend that we're familiar with or I'm familiar with years ago. Obviously it's changed, but I feel like sometimes people get in their own way of the growth of the business, like Jobber, they're not using it. They're not doing this. Like they're not going to open it up. I don't know what Builder Trend's going to be doing. And the craziest part is like, I love that JobTread jumped in. I love that you guys went in because it opened the door for people to control their business the way they want to control their business. If you want to go to the moon and use this technology, you're capable of doing that. There's risks. Like Eric mentioned, there are risks to this stuff. There is those hallucinations where, your chatbot could start gaslighting you and start catfishing you on different things and literally make you believe that, the grass is pink. And and you might think it is, but at the end of the day, I think that the cool part is I really love that you guys opened the door for people to control, and that's one of the major benefits I find with JobTread is that it is a support mechanism that allows the user to integrate with all these different tools and make it their own version. And I think that that's a very important thing that a lot of businesses struggle to understand is that we are always serving a customer, right? We are always serving a client, and if your client wants something a little bit different or very specific to something and you don't give them the ability to have that customizational ability, they're going to find it, right? Like ultimately they will always go and find what they are looking for because people are unique, people are special, people are different. So I love that you've kind of had that at the forefront of, how JobTread is distributed in the marketplace, where it's like, it's this accessible tool that anybody can make their own. And now you can use AI in the craziest way possible, which I love it. I think it's incredible.
Hey, we've got an ad here. Make sure to pay attention. What's up, guys? Are you a contractor or business owner looking to take things to the next level? Well, I've got something for you. The Elite Builder Society is a community that helps contractors grow and scale. For $49 a month, you can have access to 20 group coaching calls. Look, you're probably wondering, how am I going to show up to 20 calls, Brandon? That's a lot. And yeah, it is a lot for $49 a month. But every call is recorded so you can watch it at your leisure. But you get the best experience when you're live on the call with us. Okay, at the end of every webinar, there will be a Q&A where you can ask the industry expert questions that you can implement into your business. Look, if you're ready to take things to the next level for $49 a month, go to ebsworks.com and register today. I look forward to seeing you inside the community.
So how many people would you say are using the actual MCP connection to JobTread? Like how many people actually jumped on board with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we had over, it was like within the first week of announcing it, we had over 1,000 new Claude signups,
wow.
which is pretty wild. Got Anthropic's attention pretty quickly, which has been great. So now it's, several thousand companies have already connected and are using it. It's really interesting. I mean, like the cool thing about it, like even if you didn't necessarily want to, have it, go kind of, read and report on things or create things or, do whatever, like just connecting your Claude to your JobTread through the MCP, like it unlocks so much context for Claude or for chat. So that anytime, whenever someone's like, trying to learn JobTread or how do I set this up or how do I do this or how do I do that, like it is able to feed it so much context that like it can very accurately answer and give you guidance on how to set up JobTread or how, to do those things that you're trying to do. I mean, now you could take it a step farther and be like, hey, go build me a dashboard or go, create a workflow or go, build a job or a budget. Like, it can do all of those things. Again, I still remind you, like you got to verify, don't trust and verify is the saying here, but like, just the power of the knowledge base that you get when you connect your Claude or your chat to JobTread's MCP is huge, and like, that's super, super exciting. But like, again, we're seeing some really, really creative use cases. We're seeing just tons of new automations, tons of skills that are getting built, where again, it's like, if you are spending time doing some sort of, monotonous, administrative task, like, I think once you understand what needs to happen, then you are in a good position to go and try to really figure out how can I leverage AI to automate this process, to streamline it as much as possible so that instead of having to do a lot of the manual work, you're more so reviewing and approving and not doing all the entry, the drafting, things like that. I think it's a huge, boost in productivity, but even just having it like serve as a second set of eyes for you. Once you have drafted up your budget or your proposal or whatever it may be, like having your AI be able to go in and just say, hey, can you go review this proposal or go review this budget? Give me any feedback. Is there anything that I might have missed? Or could I word something a little bit better? Go look at my schedule. Did I take everything into account, from the budget? Like, is there anything anything that doesn't look realistic, like, I think it is an extremely powerful tool to go and review and give you feedback, before you send it, to the client, before you're ready to kind of stamp your final approval. Like, I think that is a great tool, especially for guys who are, you may be a solo owner operator. You don't have anyone in the company to kind of give you that second check and just kind of look over and proofread. Like, I read a guy on our Facebook, JobTread Pros, was talking about how like he had it go review his entire catalog, and it found like over like 400 just like little typos and little mistakes that like he had made along the way, or like, cost inconsistencies or things like that, where like, within a matter of like 30 minutes, he was able to just like update and improve every single line item that he had in his whole catalog. And like, again, like that could have taken him days or weeks, to go through and manually do, when again, you got technology here that, in minutes can do a lot of hard, heavy lifting, so that you don't have to.
I was listening to this reel this morning. I was in the drive-through and getting a coffee, and Elon was talking about how, he wakes up in the morning, AI is different. He gets to the afternoon, AI is different. At the end of the day, AI is different, and it's just this vicious cycle every day. I was trying to explain this to somebody. I feel like we're in like a warp speed tunnel of some type, because normally you would build some systems and you would implement some, different tools into your business, and you would run that for, 3 to 6 months. And then you'd review the data and make small adjustments along the way and improve it as you go. But like every day, every week, there are new opportunities to really focus on. And we talk a lot about integration with, helping with your estimating, helping with your sales framework within our group calls. And we actually started just recently, we're on our fourth call, we have an AI integration call. So we talk about how to integrate Claude directly into your business. And our second call, we talked about how to integrate it with JobTread, even though that information is available. We just kind of dove into that a little bit more. But like, I think that every day there is a new opportunity. And so we were trying to figure out on our end, like, how can we serve our clients in a way that kind of runs parallel with the industry and how it's just transforming. And I was like, I think we got to meet every day. Like, I think we literally got to discuss every day what's new. And we have to just present and then determine what is going to be the discussion topic for that week. Because I don't think we can plan 2 or 3 months in advance, because I don't think that 2 or 3 months in advance from now will look the same as it does today, just like we were kind of mentioning earlier. So, I mean, how are you guys? I don't know, like, do you feel the same thing?
I think that what we're seeing by and large, again, like as crazy as it is, like, the majority of the industry is still, not using AI, or they're just dabbling in it. But like, I think for us who have been using it every single day, I mean, like, again, I probably have like, I don't know, 30, 40 conversations a day with AI. For those of us who just, don't even know how we'd live without it, like, we have to remember that for a lot of people, they're still dipping their toe in the water. And so we're seeing a lot of interest and people asking for, just general AI training, like the things that we take for granted, like, understanding how to prompt AI. Again, it's just like anything else. I mean, garbage in, garbage out. If you tell it, hey, go do this, and you don't give it any more direction or instruction or, the details of what this is and where do I go do this and how do I go do this, like, it's not going to know. I mean, again, it might kind of sort of make some assumptions, and as you get more history with it, like, it starts to kind of know what you want. But like, when you first get in there, like, you have to be extremely detailed in giving it prompts, and this is where, like, to the point where, like, I encourage people, instead of sitting there trying to type everything out, just like use the voice to text, like, just sit there and talk to it and talk it all out. Give it as much detail as you possibly can, because the more detail you give it, the better the result that you're going to get on the output. And also, like, one of the things, like, I would encourage people to always do is, like, ask it, like, hey, before you go do something, can you summarize what you heard, that I asked for? Like, kind of tell me what you're going to do. Let me make sure that you got it all right before you go do it. And one of the reasons I love Claude is very good about prompting you and saying, hey, I was a little uncertain about this. Did you mean do this or that or something else? And then you can write, well, here's what I really meant. And then it takes that feedback loop. And so it's not like you're going to just like, tell it to go do something and then it's just going to go do it. You're having a conversation with it. you're going to have a back and forth. You're going to work together. And think about this as like, your most productive, your most affordable, intern, right? Or just, assistant, maybe digital assistant is a little bit better way because, an intern might not have as much experience or knowledge, but like, it is a tool that can go and do things for you, but like you have to guide it. And so I think a lot of people that they're getting into this, they're hearing about all these awesome use cases, but they're like, how do I get started? It still sort of feels like this magic box and it's just a bunch of, you got a magic wand somehow. And, it does sort of feel like that a lot, but, it really is more about being very intentional and using, the right tool and asking the right questions to get that desired outcome.
Dude, I've been doing the voice to text thing for a while now. And I found that my phone, I don't know if it's my phone or what's going on, but it goes a bit rogue and sometimes how it's capturing the information. And so what I've been doing lately, like you said, is there's a mic button. So not where you're like engaging back and forth, because I don't really want the feedback. I just want you to hear me and then do what I say, but like within Claude or ChatGPT. But I've been using the mic button and it transcribes then what I'm saying. So it captures it. And it has been a lot more accurate with its delivery. So we uploaded Claude, I don't know what it was. It feels like yesterday, probably a couple of months ago, but it literally feels like yesterday. And we got the first plan, which was whatever. And then we just upgraded to the second plan, which was not that long ago. And so I've been maxing it out every day. Which is crazy because it's like for us, it's almost $200 a month. In Canada, our dollar's worth next to nothing. But but it's like I might have to go to the next plan. Like I'm using it to that level, and it's just bonkers how powerful this is. What I was talking about with Elon when he was talking about how it was like, he'd wake up one day and the morning would look one way, the afternoon would look one way, the evening would look one way, and it always is different. Like the technology was always progressing and improving. And obviously he probably has a deeper understanding with Gronk and everything like that. But like what he was saying was that he thinks that within the next 3 months, potentially, this technology will be able to be significantly more powerful than humans, which can be a bit concerning because I think the biggest concern that I feel like, some of the people have is, what happens if it kind of goes a bit rogue and starts hallucinating in negative ways? It's hard because like we use it so frequently. Can you imagine, if you woke up tomorrow and the technology was taken away from you, what you'd have to do? And I don't know if that would happen. I don't think that could ever happen right now, but I don't also know if it can have the control measures in place and the guardrails if it becomes not in control anymore, and those are some of the concerns. Those are the real concerns that I have. I don't know if, you have any thoughts on that, but like, it's very powerful. I could never live without it ever again. But,
and I mean, Elon is notorious for saying, AI could be the end of us all and it's going to kill us and yada, yada. I mean, like, at the same time, like I think at least currently, the benefits far outweigh the risk. And it's about using the AI responsibly. Now, again, it's kind of what is your risk tolerance, right? Like I have not yet connected AI to my email. I don't feel comfortable giving, AI the ability to read all my email because again, I know that there are, a lot of, spammers and malicious, people who send phishing attacks and they send a bunch of emails that like, again, like who knows what that email says in it, but it could have a set of instructions that tells my agent, my AI, to go and do something like go find what bank am I getting notifications from, go log into that bank account and, maybe go send a wire. I don't know. Like, I mean, I realize that like with email, a lot of times that is sort of the key to reset your password in a lot of your accounts. And so my fear is that if I give AI access to my email and if it gets some set of instructions from someone else, again, beyond my knowledge and maybe in the middle of the night, and I have no idea what's happening, like then it could go and start trying to kind of do malicious things. We've already seen and we've caught, a handful of different kind of AI-based, phishing and attacks where people are trying to gain access, to your systems. And so like that is a concern. And look, at the end of the day, there is no way that we're ever going to be able to outsmart this thing in the long run. And so I do think there's going to be some challenges at some point. Is it going to be able to be taken away or stopped? Like, no, I think at this point, cat's already out of the bag. There's open source models. A lot of our guys, I mean, they're running, their own LLM, their own, AI model on their own machine. You don't need Anthropic or Chat or any of these third parties, these cloud hosted softwares to be able to deliver the services. Like you can now get it, on your own in your own closed environment. And again, like you decide, do I want to allow it to reach out to the web? Do I want to allow it to go into my email? Like, what what do I want to do with it? That's kind of the $1 million question here, is what is, safe and what is, risky. There's also, again, like you got like OpenClaw out there, which is a very well known, no guardrails, very risky. It can take action on your behalf and really do, whatever you allow it to do. And I think people they're just not going to know what the real risks are. And that's going to be the problem, is kind of that not knowing where your downsides and where your risks are, and just sort of seeing that, hey, that easy button looks really, really easy. I'm just going to press it and assume all's good. And I think as we go farther and farther along, people are going to really need to understand how this stuff is working and not just take it for granted.
The crazy part is you get in a room with people that are like AI focused and they're all speaking kind of the same language. And then you understand that there is still a small group of people in that room. Like, it is still a very small group of people that are in that room. And there's still a large portion of people that are not using this technology. And so at some point you will. Right? If you're listening to this and you're not using any AI technology, at some point you will. The message is be very cautious. I've been using it for a couple of years. I don't know how long you've been using it for, probably very similar. And if it's your first prompt ever and you have never talked to this thing before, be very cautious, right? Start on level 1. Plan a date with your wife, or, plan a trip with your kids. Just play around with it a little bit. The first time I actually used it, where I was really, really impressed, actually, me and my girlfriend were going to experience Banff. And I think I shared some of these insights with you when you came to Canada, but I got it to build a roadmap. So this was when ChatGPT was, kind of fresh, and I got it to help build a roadmap, these little milestones and these little, explore spots that were, along the way on a route. And that's a great use for the product. Like, playing around with it to help build your travel, but you can get deep. Like, you can help evaluate flights and actually probably get it to book flights for you and organize your entire schedule. And that, I think, if you're starting out, is probably a little bit too aggressive, because I think that's where you'll get led down a bad path and put yourself, at risk. Like Eric said about the email thing, like keeping that disconnect, I think, is a really good idea. And just keeping that separation between it and you, I think, is really healthy.
I think when it does the research, right? Like that is, again, that's the time consuming thing. I want it to give me guidance. I want it to go deeply research all my options. But at the end of the day, like, tell me, and then I'm going to go and I'm going to log in and book my own flight. I'm going to go and I'm going to send that message to the client. I'm going to go, and kind of, review and then take that final action, because again, like when you kind of let that control go, again, maybe 9 out of 10 times, maybe 99 out of 100 times, it's great. But it's like that one time, I want to still kind of have a little bit more of that oversight and control. And, I think a lot of people will probably sort of take that. Let's kind of find that middle ground where we can leverage it, but we don't have to give it full control.
Mm-hmm. No, I love it. That's good wisdom. I remember also, and yes, for education, like for research, I think it's an incredible product. The first time I used it, I remember in a way that I was like blown away. This is a couple of years ago, like right when it first came out. My daughter was getting some tutoring, and the tutor was coming to our house. I don't know what it was, English or math or something, but it was in-house tutoring. And I was looking for some research on locations, like a huge bucket of information. And I was like, this is so big for me to think about myself, and she's like, well, my brother actually, he's in university as, I don't know if it was like a researchologist or whatever it might be, but that's what he was going to university for, was researching. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay. Well, this would be a great person. Like, he's an analyst. He goes and analyzes information and gathers it and populates, data. What I was trying to do was gather some data on a large spread across North America, which would have taken me forever. And I asked him, and so we were chatting, and I was potentially going to retain him, and I didn't, because then the next day ChatGPT basically came out, and I just asked it the deep question, and even though it hallucinated at that point really bad, like its hallucinations when it first came out was pretty bad, it was still mind-boggling how much data it would provide for me. So, I really encourage everyone, like I'm trying to get my mom to use Claude and ChatGPT, and just really get them to understand, like, it's no different than, when DVD came out, at some point you're going to be forced to use it. It's just life-changing how efficient. I also agree with you. I feel like a Superman. Like I literally feel like what I'm capable of doing in one single day or one single week is what would normally take me half a year. And it's just crazy what you're capable of completing within that time. Any other little insights on drops that may be coming within JobTread?
Yeah. So again, I think that the way that we released our AI connector with this MCP server, I mean, that made total sense to kind of, again, get it out there into people's hands to allow them to bring their own AI And that lets you kind of do so much, but as we continue to research it and develop on it, we are going to be releasing, and we've already released a handful of kind of like very specific AI features within JobTread. The challenge with kind of the general AI connector, or just having a general AI, feature within any product, is that there's so much that it could do. And so the context window and everything that it has to know and sort of figure out, because a lot of times it's just figuring it out on the fly, but like it's such a large amount of information that, I think that's what sort of creates that sort of hit or miss type experience. And so, what we've been working on lately is kind of creating very point specific solutions within JobTread. So when you go to a budget, you could get very specific, like, hey, help me build, a budget for this construction, job. Or when you go to the scheduling, or when there's kind of a very specific place, we can give it a whole bunch more information and knowledge and training about that one specific feature and what you may be wanting to do there, versus having to have this kind of, sort of sees everything and knows everything. Because like, again, we're seeing that the quality of the results is not often going to be nearly as high as if we are very focused on where we add these features. And so I do see us over the coming months continuing to add these kind of like little gems, throughout the product that are going to make it a lot easier for people to learn and for people to use, AI in conjunction with everything else. But again, there's going to be a huge opportunity for all of us to continue finding ways to incorporate AI into our daily lives and into our daily activities, because, at the end of the day, it is a very, very powerful tool. And I think that, there's a lot of fear that, AI is going to, replace us all and we're not going to, be needed one day. And I think the reality is it's the people who are using AI are going to replace the people who are not using AI.
Yes.
When I think about hiring, right? Like, why in the world would I ever hire somebody who doesn't have experience using AI when I have equally qualified candidate who does have experience? Like, I'm getting that extra bonus of somebody who's, I'm getting them and I'm getting their digital assistant, right? Like their ability to go solve problems, come up with solutions, get a lot more work and effort done. Like, I'm going to hire the person who has experience with AI all day, every day, assuming everything else is equal and they're a good fit and yada, yada. But like, I think that's where like this industry is moving, is like, if you don't want to get left behind, you need to start learning and start getting experience, using AI, because like that is a valuable skill set and it's a value add to any business that is going to look to hire you. And so I encourage everyone, spend time, using it and understanding it. And I think that could end up making a huge impact in your future, career.
What's up, guys? I hope you're enjoying this episode of the On-Site Podcast. So here's the deal. We want to grow this show and we need your help. It's simple. Pay the tax, share the show. That's it. Let's get back into it.
Man, what a time to be alive. Like, it's just a wild roller coaster. Like, at what point in our life did we ever think that we would have access to this ability to learn and grow and achieve levels of success that, it astonishes me what we're capable of doing. And I'm sure you kind of feel the same way. It's just like, what a time to be alive. Like, what, I don't know how old you are. I'm 44, but I remember when I was like young, when I was a teenager, and there was the star phone, the flip phone. My girlfriend has all of her old phones, like all of her original phones. She saved all of them, which I thought was incredible. It was like a flashback. But when the BlackBerry came out, how old are you?
I'm 43. I had the Palm Pilot, the Trio. I had the BlackBerry.
We're only a year apart. We're only a year apart. Yeah. So I'm 44. We're only a year apart. So, dude, when the BlackBerry came out, I was like, this is amazing. What a time to be alive.
Yeah.
And still in the same lifetime, look at the shit that we're capable of doing now. That's so crazy. And I feel so privileged to be in this world. And, our kids are going to experience a world that is much different. I'm afraid of that world a little bit, but my son's 18, my daughter's 14. Your kids are, I think, a little bit younger, and I'm all over my daughter. I'm like, my son's all AI. He's all about AI. He's doing it all the things, but he's still going to become a welder. That's his journey. But I'm telling my daughter, I was like, I think you really need to double down and like learn this in a way that you can really like enjoy it, like be excited about it, like feel the same level level of excitement that I feel right now with these tools, because somebody else, an employer, is going to see what you're capable of doing with this tool, and it makes you 10, if not 100 times more valuable when you come to the table. Like when you come with a backpack of like solutions to any business, it's an easy decision. Doesn't matter if you've gone to university, doesn't matter your diplomas or any of these, or graduation, none of that stuff matters. What matters is what problems can you solve for me? Can you solve them faster than everyone else, more efficiently, with less problems, with more problems down the road? And so, if your kids aren't using technology in any way, shape, or form, I really encourage you to help them, to encourage them.
I do think a lot about, man, like, what is it going to be like for this future generation? So I have a 7-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, and like probably several years ago, they got hooked on, when they saw, like, I was, they're like, hey, what would a mouse and a giraffe look like together? And like, chat would like come up with these like, really interesting, images. And my daughter's like, well, I want to see what, a field with 1,000 kittens looks like. And it's like these like such creative abstract ideas that like they were able to just like instantly visualize. I think that got them really excited. But it is really interesting. So there's a school that we've been looking at. It's like a private school. It's called Alpha School, and so they're starting to pop up all over the country. I don't know if they have any in Canada yet, but like in each kind of local community, if you get enough people together who are interested in having one created, then they'll actually kind of come and create the school for you. But it's super interesting because like what they're known for is that you go to school just like the same hours any other school, but you spend 2 of your 8 hours on a computer using AI to essentially teach you. And so like, at first I was like, man, do I really want my kids spending 2 hours at school, on a computer, using AI? But like the interesting thing about it, and when you dig in, it's like every student, is going to learn at their own pace. And some subjects are going to be easier, some are going to be harder. And with the AI, the ability to use like remediation, where like if you get something wrong, it can keep going and dig in and help you understand better and go down that path so that you truly can master it without getting left behind. And the things that you're excelling at, cool, it can kind of start jumping ahead and give you more advanced, learning. And so like what they're saying, and again, I'm not part of the school. I have no idea if it's true or not, but like they're saying that kids will learn more in that 2 hours a day than you're going to learn all day at, a public school where like you're just following this generic curriculum. But even more interesting is like, the rest of that school day, they're going to spend time giving your kids real experience, giving them, entrepreneurial experience, public speaking experience, hands-on, building experience. Like, they're going to like try to get them to do like, some sort of a marathon or things like that, where like these ideas and these experiences that they never, ever would have gotten, until much later in life, they want to expose them earlier. And they truly believe that like with leveraging AI, you can learn a lot more and a lot more effective than spending all day and potentially still feeling overwhelmed or feeling, like the class, maybe you're smarter and you get it and you're spending your day there and you're bored, and like that leads to burnout, or maybe you're overwhelmed and you can't keep up. And again, that leads to anxiety and frustration. Like it could be a very interesting world where we can incorporate, AI into training, this future generation. Again, I hope that we don't just not train and not learn to read and to write and to do, the basic things that we need to just sort of be a human and live. Hopefully that stuff doesn't get left behind. But, I think it could be a very, very powerful tool when it's used in the right way. And I'm super interested to see what happens. The cool thing about Alpha School is they have a summer program.
Looking at it right now.
Yeah, go watch the videos. Like they are phenomenal at marketing.
It's crazy.
I was like, man, I watched a couple. I was like, man, take my money. Like, holy cow, like sign me up. But like the neat thing is over the summer, they do like kind of like what they call a shadow day. And they also have like a week-long camp, but you can send your kid to go for a day or for a week over the summer, and they can like really get a feeling, for what it's like being there. And they're like, your kids will love going to school, and it's like, well, if my kids are, super excited to go to school every day, like that's cool. I want them to wake up excited to go. And, again, maybe it's, instead of just sitting there, in a classroom, kind of doing the same old boring stuff, like they're able to be a lot more engaged and gaining real experience. So super curious to see how this progresses. We're going to send our kids to the summer camp. They're going to do a week at the school over the summer.
Let me know how that goes. It's crazy how the world works, man. It's so crazy how conversations like come into fruition. And I'm going to feed you a little bit of info on what we're building. And by the time this airs, it'll be pretty close to being live. But we've been actually building, a learning mechanism for our contractors. It's going to be exclusive to the people in our community and to my partners. But like full transparency, I didn't graduate. And the reason I didn't graduate was because I was just not interested in it. Like I was interested in other things that I wasn't being presented. And I just had like next to no excitement to go to school. And unfortunately, that is so for so many people, not just school, in every industry, right? Inside of your business, there are probably people that are really good at parts of the business, but then they're also probably really good at are not good at other parts of the business. And so there's still this level of expectation that we all have to, maintain a consistent pattern of excellence in some way, shape, or form that fits under a form of a curriculum. But there's parts of a curriculum that we will retain and learn differently. And so I struggled with school because I could have benefited from parts of that, but I didn't get them. I wasn't given those parts of that information that probably would have made me, a lot more brilliant than I already am today. And same thing with you. Like you're a brilliant person, you're smart, you've got drive, you're determined. And like, imagine if you were able to pull some of those other things that would just make you even better. Right. And so that's why this school is incredible. I'm going to actually look into it. There is not any alpha schools in Canada. There is a lot of them in America, which is incredible. And, we're in the midst right now of building a learning platform that would have really, I feel like, benefited my mind, like how I would learn. And I feel like so many other people would resonate with that information. I actually just presented about it this morning with one of our large organizations that we're working with. We're looking at maybe potentially discussing a partnership with them on it. But like my son, he's in grade 12 and he's just disconnected from school right now, like just not into it. Because the problem with our schools here is that they are just jamming shit in front of them with the expectation that they have to do it the same way it was done 5 to 10 years ago. And unfortunately, that doesn't exist. And so he was working on an assignment. So here in Canada, there's a legislation that says that all kids will have access or can legally have access to any tool or resource that levels the playing field. So calculators, AI, all that stuff is fair game, right?
That's awesome.
But the teachers aren't receptive to that. And so the teachers don't acknowledge that this is a tool. They look at it as cheating. And so he got a 0 for cheating on this essay. And he didn't cheat. He used it the way it was intended. He used the material to create the result. And so I, like a dad should, I kind of got pretty upset with the school. And I explained my stance. And I said, unfortunately, you should have celebrated him for the fact that he advanced his ability to learn differently than other people. And instead you punished him. And that's detrimental to his mind. And I said, you missed the opportunity. And the unfortunate reality is the school system, I've lost hope and I've lost confidence in because my daughter's still in it. And I'm nervous to send her to school because they're not encouraging them to use the tool in a way that it does what the school might teach them how to do. And so unfortunately, there's going to be a very large group of people that are going to be held back. And schools like this are going to quickly differentiate the people that are advancing and learning with the current technology and the systems that are available versus the ones that aren't being encouraged to use it at all. Ultimately, the principal did agree with me that it was a bit unrealistic. And so fortunately, he was able to redo it and got a great mark, which he deserved. And so, that was the outcome with that. But I think it's cool. I'm going to look into this school. And if you give me some feedback on what that camp was like, I might want to connect with that organization just to share some of the learning mechanisms that we're building. But dude, crazy world to live in, crazy time to be in, sending a message on a BlackBerry to discussing how we can control so much more. And, if you're listening to this now, if you haven't used AI, just try it, just play with it a little bit. Great conversation, Eric. Anything else you want to share with us? For those of you that are not using JobTread, okay, if you're listening to this and you're not using JobTread, I think you can go to jobtread.com, book a discovery call, talk with their team, just try it out. If you're using some kind of construction management software, try it out. Wouldn't you want to work with somebody that you could talk to like this? To have access to Eric, he's super busy. Obviously, you're probably not going to be just calling him because he's obviously super, super busy. But to have access to people like this is just incredible. And that's really encouraging for me. So if you haven't used JobTread, go try it out. Take a look. Eric, anything else you want to share with us today?
I just, appreciate you having me on, and certainly love the opportunity to show anyone out there who's not currently using JobTread what we could do for you, and how you can connect your AI to it, and streamline the business. I think there's a lot of really exciting things that you can employ right now that you can use to grow and scale your business, and we'd love the opportunity to just be a partner for you and help you continue to grow.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you. Excited for our next conversation. Maybe we'll be on Mars. Who knows?
We'll see.
I'm not going. Not for me. But anyway, I appreciate you. That is all. Until next episode.
All right, that concludes this episode of the On-Site Podcast. Remember, if you enjoyed this episode, please pay the tax, share the show. Guys, if you want to be a part of the Elite Builder Society, all you got to do is pay $49 a month. That's it. $49 a month. You get 20 group coaching calls every month. Okay? Go to ebsworks.com and register today. If you enjoyed the show, please pay the tax and share the show.